Hello, my name's Tim Kenny from Tim Kenny Surveying. I'm a residential surveyor, industry trainer and university lecturer. And recently I did a video about talking about how we can make sure that we're using recommendations for further investigations within home surveys appropriately. And today I wanted to kind of maybe touch on one of the big ticket items for recommendations to investigate further, and that is structural movement. Now, of course, there's a reasonable argument for saying that if you, as a surveyor carrying out a home survey, see a crack, you cannot say how long that crack has been there. You cannot say it's not going to immediately expand tomorrow and suddenly become a massive structural issue, irrespective of what you're looking at. You are there for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, even a really long survey, 5 hours. It's never going to be enough to adequately monitor a crack. Minimum monitoring, 3-6 months to confirm the movement of a crack. So you could argue that, if you see a crack, you're going to have to recommend some form of further investigation because you can't be certain. So there's an argument for that. Not necessarily ever going to be wrong, because if you do that, you're always going to protect your client, and that's got to be the first kind of the first requirement of a home survey. But to be fair, if you do that, you are probably not doing the best job you can, in all honesty. It is possible to reasonably assess the severity of a crack, the immediate risk of a crack. We can also make some pretty good assessments of the cause. I'm going to start by saying there is one document that you, if you are a residential surveyor, should have read. If you have not read this document, I would argue that you're perhaps going to struggle to prove that you are competent. And that is BRE Digest 251, the one excitingly titled Assessment of Damage in Low-Rise Buildings with Particular Reference to Progressive Foundation Movement. Sounds really exciting, but it is possibly the foundational, one of us like typically using the word, document when it comes to assessing structural damage to buildings. And it's really useful, and you probably know it in terms of using the kind of the categorization of cracks, and that is a really effective thing. But the bit that I always kind of think gets missed, undernoticed, is actually hidden away, or not even hidden away, it's in the second paragraph of the introduction. And literally in that introduction it says, pretty much, if it's category 0, 1 or 2, it's going to have lots of causes, but it's probably not worth investigating. Okay? It literally just says it's not economically viable to investigate something that it's a category 2. With one exception, and that fundamentally is where it is caused by below ground movement. Because we know that all of the cracks that they identified as being category 3 or above were progressive, were caused by below ground movement. So we know that if we see a category 2 crack, we can dismiss it if we cannot link it to below ground movement. And that's kind of the approach I take. Okay, I see a crack, I can categorise it using 251, both in terms of the width and the ease of repair. Never forget the ease of repair when it comes to categorisation. Once I've done that, I can, okay, right, can I link this crack to any form of below ground movement? Right, and that's kind of the way I take it. Is this sort of this. I was going to say it's a negative approach, but yeah, I try and view it positively. Can I find a way to link this crack to below ground movement? Reasonably link it to below ground movement. If I can't, well then category 2, no connection to below ground movement. I can maybe note it in my site notes, I might note it in the reports, depending on the level of detail required, but I'm certainly not going to make a recommendation for further investigations because I've reasonably assessed it within my competence as a surveyor. Of course then raises the question, how do I exclude below ground movement? We can't see below the ground, so potentially it could be happening where it could be something below the ground we can't see. Well, the answer is, we look at the pattern, follow the pattern of the cracking, and that will always tell you, to a reasonable degree of certainty, what is going on. Now, see, it's a short video just on YouTube. I've got no way I can take you through all of the possible patterns and types of movement that can occur, but I will make one really good recommendation, and that is this book. So whether that's come up on the screen or not, but that is The Practical Guide to Diagnosing Structural Movement in Buildings by Malcolm Holland. Really useful book. Just got some really good diagrams just detailing the patterns of crack that you could expect to see in a building, and pretty much everything is covered. So, you know what? If you're at property, you see some movement, you've assessed it, you've used 251. Next step is then to draw out the cracks. Even better, take a photograph of it and annotate the photograph. Make sure you've got that good record of the cracking pattern. Go away, compare it to something like the images in Malcolm's book, or anything you can find in other defects databases, and other information about structural movement. Digest, BRE have some interesting digests on it as well. And then you can make an assessment as to go, okay, can I connect that to below ground movement? And, you know, is it in connection to some trees on clay soil? Is it in connection to potential issues around drainage and drain runs? If it's not, you know what, under category 2, I'm happy, I'm going to let it sit there. Okay, hopefully that just gives you a little bit of insight how to approach it. If you've got other ways, other things you want to comment, please let me know. Hopefully that will help with you. Thank you very much.